Hey guys, so today we are going to start a series that I'm going to call 10 tips for hiking preparedness. In this video, I'm going to go over the first five tips. And then in the next video, in part two, we'll get through number 6 through 10. So these tips for hiking preparedness are all about your mindset. They're all about things that you can do mentally, either preparing for the trail or while you're on the trail, to be ready when or if things go wrong. So this is not a video about what kind of items, what are your essential items that you should have in your backpack at all times. I'll do a video on that soon here, and if you're interested in my hiking essentials checklist, I'll put a link to that article on my website below. But today we're just going to talk about the first 5 of my 10 tips for hiking preparedness. So I'm going to share my screen with you guys. We're going to run through them. Here we go. Popping over here to the backpack guide. And let's scroll down. In a couple days since we wrote that article. And here it is. And so I used to be a wilderness first aid instructor. I'm still a certified waterfront lifeguard, and I'm going to be taking another wilderness first responder course this summer in Tahoe City, which I'm really excited about. But in our first aid courses, we used to talk a lot about it's not a matter of if, it's just a matter of when, right? And while we don't want to be constantly worrying ourselves and putting ourselves in this mindset that bad things will happen when we're outside, right? The wilderness is a fun, amazing place to explore. There are certain things that we can do to make sure that we are prepared if something does go a little sideways or something unexpected happens, right? So my first tip for hiking preparedness is to stay calm. It's a very simple tip, but it's the number one tip for a reason. It's the most important thing that you can do when things start to go wrong. And I'll tell you a brief story before I plug this book that you see in front of you here, Deep Survival by Laurence Gonzales. When I was, 18 or 19, in between my freshman and sophomore years of college, a group of buddies and I all got together and we decided we want to do one last hiking trip before the summer was up. And we picked a long trail, 7.5 miles down to the North Fork of the American River, starting up on the Sierra Crest. It's about 3,000 miles in elevation dip. And so at the end of your day, you've got to then do that elevation gain on the way out. And within, I'd say, the first 2 miles on the trail, we had completely lost the trail. And instead of backtracking and finding where we should be, we were all overly confident in our skills. We'd grown up in the mountains. We knew relatively that it was all one watershed. If we kept moving downhill, we'd eventually find the river, which we did after we found the trail about 2 hours later. We proceeded to spend the afternoon cliff jumping, hiking around and along the river. And then when it was time to hike out, there's quite a set of switchbacks out of that trail. And somebody had the bright idea of, what if we just cut off the switchbacks and just go straight up and we'll hit the next one and we'll continue on. Well, we tried it. We missed the next switchback and we ended up for about an hour and a half bushwhacking through about 8 to 10 foot tall manzanita, getting cut and scraped and cursing at one another. And fortunately, we finally found a lookout to where we were able to find the trail just before sunset, and it ended up being quite a dark and long hike out. Tell the full story of that some other time, but we made it through that scenario. It could have easily gone another way, and why I tell that story is to illustrate the point that when things go wrong, it's important to step back, take a deep breath, stay calm, and really make a plan for going forward. We got to keep going. We got to keep going. We got to keep going. We put these blinders on, and then we're blind, right, to solutions that could take us one way or another that could be better and healthier for us and for the group. So tip number 1 is stay calm. This book, Deep Survival, is an excellent read for anyone who's interested in hiking and the outdoors. It's who lives, who dies, and why. It's all very rooted in psychology, and it interweaves survival stories in there to illustrate why certain folks survive and why others don't. Highly recommend checking it out. I'll put the link to where you can find that on Amazon below as well. Tip number 2 is to assess your surroundings as you hike. So another thing we talked about in our wilderness first aid courses is the ability to improvise. If someone gets hurt on the trail and things go wrong, what tools can you harvest from nature to be able to make a splint, or to be able to fashion some sort of other useful tool or instrument that you can use? And the other thing I want to talk about in assessing your surroundings is to sort of build these mental breadcrumbs as you're hiking, right? On a long trail like the John Muir Trail, we talk a lot about head down hiking, to where you get a little bit tired, you're looking forward to that mountain house meal at the end of the day, and you're not really paying attention to your surroundings. When you pay attention to your surroundings, you notice rocks, you notice trees, you notice unique features that if you do find yourself lost or out of your comfort zone, backtracking and recognizing some of these unique features can be huge in helping you get your bearings and turn what could be a terrible situation into a much more manageable one, right? So number 2 in hiking preparedness is to be always and consistently assessing your surroundings. Number 3 is to make a plan. So this goes back to what you do before your trip, right? So having a good plan is essential, and communicating that plan is really important. If you guys saw that movie 27 Hours, where the guy had to eventually saw through his own arm to get out, right? He made a plan in his own head, but he didn't communicate that plan to anyone, so no one knew where he was. And when anyone realized that he was missing, they had no idea where to go look for him, right? And so maybe it was 127 hours. 27 hours wouldn't be so bad. But yeah, make a plan, communicate your plan, and don't be afraid to change your plan as needed. But having a plan in place is important from the jump, you know? So instead of just going out into the woods like, oh, we'll just go frolicking today, which can be fun in its own right, you need to have a good solid idea of what you're getting into. Number 4, when you realize that you're in trouble, when you realize things have gone wrong, call for help, right? It's easy for us, especially guys. We have this inflated ego sometimes, and we think, well, I can get myself out of this trouble. It's no big deal. And 3 or 4 more hours pass before we decide this is actually kind of serious and I need to make a call, right? Those are 3 or 4 hours that people that are more experienced than us could have been organizing a search and rescue endeavor, right? And so carrying things like a radio, a cell phone, satellite phone, or GPS unit, any other type of like distress beacon is always a good idea the further that you're going out and away. And calling for help as soon as you realize that you need it is essential, right? We talked about that a lot in our first aid classes as well. As soon as you realize something's wrong, make that call, because the longer you wait, the longer it is until extended, more professional care, more professional search and rescue can arrive on the scene. So tip number 4 for hiking preparedness, call for help when you realize you're in an emergency situation. If you check out my blog, I've thrown a few good links to awesome beacons or GPS units you could explore. And tip number 5 is attend to your basic needs. So what I want to bring up when we talk about this is another little story from that deep survival book that I mentioned at the beginning. As we made the mistake of doing in our situation, we thought if we can just get to a lookout point, if we can just get to elevated high ground, we can find the trail and we'll be all right, right? And so we beat ourselves up physically and mentally trying to get to that lookout point, going and not paying attention to the sun, not paying attention to how my body's feeling, not paying attention to am I hungry, am I getting cut, right? And these are all big red flags of things that you shouldn't do, and that's why I tell you this story. And in deep survival, he tells a story about a young a young child who gets lost in the woods. And instead of doing what us, 18, 19-year-old guys tried to do, is to just go until we found ourselves in a better position, the child was much more naturally in tune to his or her basic needs. I forget his or her, and found things that he or she could forage to eat to satiate her hunger. Found a stump of a tree to curl up in when he or she got cold. And by attending to these basic needs and finding things in the immediate surroundings that could help them do that, they, in essence, didn't really move too far from where they had last been seen, which was a key point, right? They took care of themselves without moving too far from where they had last been seen. Search and rescue was mobilized, and they found that child within 24 hours. Spent a rough, kind of chilly night out in the woods, but ultimately was fine and was able to learn from that experience and tell the story of that experience. So tip number 5 is attending to your basic needs, right? And not getting too caught up in, I've got to get myself unstuck. Pay attention to your body and pay attention to your surroundings. So those are my first 5 tips for hiking preparedness. I'll be back tomorrow with the second 5 in part 2 of this video. If you guys are interested in other topics, please subscribe to my channel. I'm going to be posting a lot more videos up here on the Backpack Guide channel. And you can check out some of the other videos that I've already posted here, right by clicking this little bar right up here. So thank you guys for checking this video out. Drop a comment if this is helpful. Like this video, share it with others if you found it useful. And thank you for supporting my mission to explore wilderness, create learning opportunities, and connect with nature. Once again, I'm the Backpack Guide. We'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.